This is RevTech Podcast, where we discuss everything from business processes to measurement and technical alignment. The RevTech mission focuses on effectively managing and optimizing the go-to-market strategy through methodologies, tools, and best practices. We discuss the success criteria and technical fit guides for decision-making and ensure solutions align with the business goals. It brings me a great pleasure to introduce today's guest, Pawel Jasczurowski, who is the CEO of Demoboost. Welcome.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for having me, Lizzie, Dimitris.
It's a pleasure to have you here.
Great to have you. So very excited to chat all things Demoboost. I'd love to just kick off with a high-level 30 to 60-second overview of what Demoboost is, and then what is the story of the company.
Gotcha. So maybe starting with what we are. If you are a SaaS founder, executive, investor, you might be looking at your P&L, and you might actually notice that roughly 80% of your money is spent on two things, product or go-to-market. And if you are in that SaaS space, kind of perfect overlap of these two areas, of this 80% of the money you're spending is a demo. Like, it's literally, demo is the thesis of go-to-market of your product, right? So that's why we see that actually matters a lot. And the bigger your sales team, maybe you even have a pre-sales team, the more you grow, the more the demo matters, and also the more issues it prepares, because it's also still is a bit of a no man's child in a lot of organizations, which is changing, but it still there is. So with that being said, we really just simplify things. So what I always say, we do three things. We make sure everybody can run a perfect demo inside your organization, whether you're a CEO or an intern. Secondly, you can personalize the demo to the customer's needs in literally minutes, and not even show it to them, but also let them touch it, which is, a great way to engage them in between meetings. And thirdly, we just track everything. So actually what is going on with the demos that are being ran live, and also with those shared in between meetings. And that's it. And the story behind it really all started for us when we were at Salesforce. So I was lucky enough to be part of the Salesforce go-to-market team, and even luckier to get to know my co-founders there, Kamil and Piotr and Anna, and we were working together. Kamil was an engineering team, a director working on the actual, product and the internals of Salesforce. Piotr, Anna being, our customers and partners. So first we knew we liked working together. And then we, were looking for things to build together. And very quickly we kind of saw the big issue, the glaring issue of demos inside of Salesforce, which was very surprising to us, that a company with, so many resources still, had to wait for demos. There was no visibility into what's working, what's not working with demos. The customers had to wait. There were, errors and bugs, etc., etc. So, this made us think and dig a little deeper into other organizations as well. Turns out that it was a pretty popular problem, let's say, in a lot of organizations from B2B SaaS. Mm-hmm. So easily we just quit our jobs, forgot about our salaries, and started Demoboost, and here we are.
That's awesome. So yeah, this is a great story about how friends becoming business partners. I've heard that so many times. So congratulations, you repeating that great story, over many other entrepreneurs that started and kicked off their companies. Let's move on, and let's talk a little bit about the go-to-market strategy. What type of customers does your product fit best? I mean, how you feel about your ICP and who you're targeting?
Absolutely. So that's a good question. Right? Previously, I mentioned that demo, used to be this kind of no man's land, but now this is changing, and we also learned with the space, what's a good profile. And I would start at the top. At the top, we're looking at companies that sell B2B software. Okay. This typically divides into two groups of companies. Vendors, SaaS vendors, or whatever our business model is. Mm-hmm. And also, there's a whole big pocket of just channel sales, resellers, distributors, all that stuff, right? So these two groups are very important for us. And then if we look a little bit deeper, on the size side, we tend to add most value with companies that already have a sales team in place, 5 to 10 people, maybe even a pre-sales team if they get a little bit more technical and specialized. That's where it really starts to hurt. Those certain inefficiencies around demos and at scale, it really hurts. So that's where we can add value with this type of size. And then there's also kind of the differentiation when it comes to product. I always like to kind of put it on a bit of a matrix. Let's say on one axis, we would have a what I call like a relative complexity of a product. On one end, you would have literally a button that sends text messages, great subscription service. And the other end, you would have a banking software, right? And also the other axis would be just the volume of demos. Do you run 100 demos a week, or do you run one demo a month? Now, clearly from that, it shows which companies are a good or a bad fit for something like we do. If you're selling banking software and you're limited to 1,000 accounts in your territory, you probably should wine and dine them and do POCs all the time. Not really look to optimize your demo creation and saving time and personalizing at scale. Right? This is not your business. At the same time, if you're doing this little button that sends text messages and people look at your product thousands of times every day, every week, you probably don't need to invest in a demo as well, because you might as well just set up a trial and it's going to work, right? And make it free and things. So, so that's what we typically would exclude, or, where we don't add value, but which really leaves 80% of the SaaS market as being a good fit. Whether you're a CRM, fintech, anything else, marketing solution, and you're doing demos right now, that is probably a sign that you have some stuff that you can solve for, and we can potentially help.
That makes sense. I didn't even think about the channel sales use case of resellers and packaging that up. I run a channel sales team and should probably look into this even more. But question for you on what you mentioned, like you sell to pre-sales, you sell potentially to product. Are you finding yourself utilizing multi-threaded sales approaches where you're going in and talking to the product team, you're talking to the pre-sales team and other teams across the organization?
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. Our typical first point of contact, if there's a pre-sales organization, it would be a pre-sales organization, because this means if there's a pre-sales organization, there is a team that owns keyword demo. Okay. If there's, so that they would understand what we do and they would have a good perspective on things. Now, let's say there's no pre-sales team, then typically it would be one of 3 groups. It will be sales, product, or marketing. Sometimes there's also, more, let's say, specialist teams in bigger organizations, channel sales, like you mentioned, or enablement. But frequently they would be later brought into the mix. We're going to do our qualification call, going back to the, easiest process for us, which would be pre-sales team. A lot of times there are going to be more folks engaged. Enablement, sales for sure, right? Marketing for sure, which also goes back to my previous point, like the demo thing, it permeates your whole organization. That's why so many people should be engaged, because literally it's from everything from onboarding your team. I mean, you're selling your product, the demo is the thing, to marketing, how are you positioning your product, which is the demo, how you're showing it to customers on calls, sales team, how you're doing it between meetings and after post-sale as well, even customer success teams. And all that, right? So that's how it would typically look like.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Do you find that one team is the easiest one to get into, like with the first outreach? Like, does sales jump all over this? Does product jump all over? Or does it really depend on the organization?
So I would say it would be the easiest for us, or again, it will be the most understood by the pre-sales team. So it was a very productive conversation from the start. At the same time, I also really like talking to sales teams because there's a beauty in, trying to work with sales teams because they understand what you're doing. And they can very quickly go into, hey, let me give you your medic, let me give you your band. And it makes it very easy to fill all the data in Salesforce. That being said, pre-sales also understand all of this. So that's why they're also great partners to do projects with. Typically these 2 groups, yeah.
Yeah, my assumption would be that the sales teams are the ones that are hungry to get more demos, right? So they're an easy target, and then you slowly make your way across the other teams. That's great. So who are some of your other competitors in this space? Are there other competitors, and who do you see come up against the most?
Absolutely, yeah. So we're actually very happy that there's competitors in the space. Overall, this whole kind of demo interactivity tools, demo automation tools, it's a very new space. So I'd say 2 or 3 years old, and typically still when we talk to organizations, we're still competing against status quo. And I always say there's, again, usually 3 buckets of solutions that are being currently used for demos that we have to compete against. And this is going to be just production environments. I have a trial. I have a, just a production environment and different logins or a shared login, etc. So that is typically a thing. Secondly is video. Companies like Loom, Vidyard, you're doing a great thing with just having the ability to show what a product does. And then thirdly, it might be a mix of, I would throw in even PowerPoint in there, Figma, prototyping products tools used by product teams to explain the values there, right? So that would be our typical conversation with a prospect or a customer in terms of competing against solutions. But still, there's a lot of really good solutions out there that are starting to specialize in the space. Very happy to have companies like Walnut or DemoStack or Reprise, all of them also heavily working in the US, and happy to have them. And it really is true because we see the market is so fresh that it's kind of a bit of a rising tide lifting all the boats. So it's everybody's advertising, filling everybody's pipelines, and also educating the customer more from that perspective. Because even though it's one space, the education of the customer is still very, very important. And to be honest, like one company just wouldn't do a good job of handling this, right? So I think we're all supporting each other in that matter.
Yeah, it feels like there's a revolution going on around go-to-market, which is why we have this podcast. But there's lots of companies out there trying to help solve various organizations' issues in going to market. And you were just talking about all kinds of competitors, not just doing what you're doing, but just different approaches to demos, right? So I'm wondering, what are you finding to be successful in your own go-to-market? Are you seeing product-led growth working well? Is it partner-led growth, sales, marketing? I'm guessing it's a mix of everything. How are you thinking about what your go-to-market growth strategy is and what channels are working best there?
Yeah, and I think what you mentioned there is very true also for our stage. It's a mix of everything. We're trying different things and figuring out what works, constantly experimenting. And I don't think we're going to kind of reinvent the wheel here. Heavy believers in outbounds, because we understand the persona, we're able to identify them and kind of ABM and try to reach out in an educated way to them without spamming people. Inbound works really well. This is also something interesting, and I think curious to learn from other people in the overall SaaS space. But I think in the cases where new categories are created, content works really well. This can be the case for us because people are really hungry for that education in that new space, and they use new content. So that works well for us. We also have referral partners that we work with in that pre-sales expert space, and then there's your typical bucket of referrals and all the other things where leads can come through. But like I said, heavily in the experimentation mode. Leads are coming from all these different directions, and we're not discriminating against any other channel that brings in leads.
Exactly. I think like the content creation educational component is very interesting. Are you teaming up with partners to do some of that education and bring together a few different viewpoints to help that education?
Absolutely. And this is a very good question and something absolutely crucial to us. Because it's a new space and because we're not the smartest people in the room, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, especially in this room, but overall in the pre-sales room as well. So we want to learn from others and kind of share that knowledge and use us as a vehicle to share the knowledge. So there's experts in the pre-sale space, in consultancy space, in demo space per se, or even just a more general sales process space that are either practitioners or consultants. And they have really good best practices and ideas that, we could have never come up with. And they're, generous enough to share it with the community via us. And we partner on this content, write some blog posts, videos, webinars. And yeah, we learn from all of that. And hopefully it also is helpful for the community.
Yeah, I was just at a conference last week and I had a partner ask if I would team up with my direct competitors to teach people about ABM. And I was like, ooh, I think we're going a step too far. I'm happy to partner with ecosystem partners, but the competitors piece is hard. So I'm always trying to find that balance of how do we educate and share the best knowledge we have, and not help sell our competitors. It's a delicate balance.
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
That's a very good point. And I think we got to be careful how we define the partnerships in general. Because we don't know sometimes what the other entity is really planning to do. Paul, I have one question regarding the go-to-market. I think you mentioned that you target specific persona, and I'm very close to that topic because we discussed this a couple of times in the past. But what is your take on resistance with other functions, right? I think the sellers and the pre-sales functions, they are pretty open because of course this is very opportunistic role, and you want to sell, you want to have results. So anything that is helping you to do that is great. But there are other functions that you mentioned, and I don't feel like they completely bought the idea that I want to just have a recorded videos, send it out, and then have a process behind that can help me to monetize it. So what is your take behind this hesitation to move into that space from these functions?
Yeah, it's a good question and a tricky challenge. I would say it can go both ways. It can either be encouraged or forced. I'll start with forced because that's not what we do, but sometimes it just happens. And typically it's a situation where just a competitor moves into doing something, in our case, demo automation, and they start performing really well. It kind of forces if they're watching, it kind of forces the other functions to just buy in. Now that's a just a very straightforward case. It gets more tricky, and also we typically operate more in that empower and kind of encourage space and educate. Might be even an acronym, I don't know, 3E.
There you go.
So we work with that, and there's a couple of very very practical things. We get not reinventing the wheel here, right? Involve them in the sales process, starting with understanding what matters, because again, demo probably matters to all these functions.
Yeah.
They touch it some, one way or the other. So let's just understand what are they thinking and what are they trying to achieve. Secondly, try to address that and show them the benefits for their function, right? Whether it's cost saving for the CFO, faster sales cycle for the VP sales, more productivity for pre-sales, and a better recall of the messaging for enablement. All of that can be ticked off. It's probably mentioned on calls, but if they're not on these calls, if they're not reading the thousands follow-up emails which everybody sends, which is totally understandable, then it's just gonna get lost in the chaos of information, right? So understand them, address and explain and educate the benefits there, and also try to bring them in as to be a part of the solution. Which the last part I would say is tricky, and you know it yourself in organizations. Some people really like to take ownership. Some people already have a lot of ownership, so they would rather delegate to other functions. So then it's a bit of also the super important part of the sales process, and this true truth that ultimately whatever I say here is only going to matter to up to 50% of the decision and how it's going to go. The rest of that and most of the work is going to be done by a champion, by an executive sponsor. So they really have to understand all these things that we're talking about that I just mentioned and more, how to talk to their peers, how to talk to their colleagues, how to say, hey, I can take that responsibility. I can run that. I can invite you in later, yada, yada, and however we want to play out these roles for this project, right? So long answer to a short question, but again, not reinventing the wheel. Typically, that's how we see that. And also, maybe just one last thing to say, that's also like how we see the demos can help in this case. Like we eat our own dog food. So, the ability to actually have a call with a champion or an exec sponsor, show them something live, show them Demoboost, show them examples, say, hey, this is great, but recall of information is typically difficult. There's stats about, however many 90% of information being lost the minute you hung up. But then the ability to actually send them, an interactive demo in our case. Say, hey, listen, you can click around through this, use your muscle memory, remember this. And also at the same time, when you're in the meeting with these additional stakeholders, I'm not going to be invited because I'm not privy to this conversation, but you can take that and you can show them this yourself. Do this demo into your own internal stakeholders, which, by the way, is going to be tracked and analyzed internally. So, the go-to-market team can use it, right? So
as it should.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I like that around 90% of information is lost after the call because it makes me feel better about my own memory and ability to retain information, for better or worse. But yeah, I'm guessing like one of the biggest, at least in my case, when I'm trying to bring in a new vendor, finance and budget is always usually the gatekeeper to me pushing that through or not. I'm wondering if you actually create custom cost savings plans for these companies, or do you have some general cost savings that you're able to provide to companies to sell through to their finance teams?
We always want to custom. We want to start off with a generic, standpoint calculator and just what we saw already worked for other companies, mapped to the use cases of what we're talking about with this particular customer, and then always customize. And always something I learned at Salesforce, actually this statement about business cases, all that stuff. You don't want this to be accurate, and you don't want this to be completely wrong. It's impossible to make it correct, completely accurate. Any CFO is going to look at it like, well, it should be, this many, this slightly different number here, slightly different number there. Point is, so it doesn't matter if it's not super accurate. It can be completely wrong.
Yeah.
And then you're in a good shape. Yeah.
I love it.
Well, and it's totally dependent on like how well does the company implement it too, right? But I think that's always nice to have.
Yeah, which actually, you bring up a really good point, exactly, because it's not just a calculator, right? We very frequently have a conversation that we, if it's not being called out, we want to proactively offer it, saying, hey, listen, this is the process we would go through. You literally can be up and running day one. This is why. This is the workflow we would go through. You have an environment, you have a click path. My team can actually get it done overnight for you. And then week one, you're going to get this and this done because this is how much it takes, to create a demo, personalize it, et cetera. And here's a plan that you have for you. And there's no surprises there. We already talked a little bit. We know your product. You know how this works. This is literally how it's going to be done. So you can go to a CFO and say, hey, it's going to cost me X amount of dollars. We foresee this amount of savings. I'm like, okay, great. Probably in a 12-month, period or 24-month period. We've all seen these calculators, but it's not hey, like we're actually hitting the ground running like week one. Which is especially, I think, in today's environment, very, very important. Like people are looking for those immediate improvements.
Wins,
yeah. Okay.
Should we hop over to the demo?
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, what is the use case you want to share with us today, Pawel?
I think we can just go through an exciting part of a day of a salesperson that just got a call booked with a prospect, and they know they are interested. Maybe it's a qualification call, maybe it's already post-qualification, maybe it's already a demo, depending on the workflow. And we know they're going to be interested in our product. and we're going to quickly get ourselves ready and do a quick demo and have an intelligent conversation with a customer, thanks to our demo.
Let's do it.
Here I am logging into Demoboost. We're starting off with a library of demos that can help me run different use cases on a call or share it with the customer, which we're also going to do later. So let's pick an example from SAP right here. And here I can right away go ahead and run it live. But before that, I can quickly kind of show you how I can even personalize it for a customer. I can go into edit. And right here, you can kind of see a little bit behind the scenes how these demos are actually built. We have a technology in your browser that enables us to capture any application, any web-based application, also mobile applications, and parse them into individual screens and actually parse them with the code, not just screenshots or videos, but they take the full interactivity of your application into this, let's say, sandbox on Demoboost. Right now you can see it's code because it's nice and interactive, and at the same time, because it's code, I'm able to edit it. So maybe I want to change 9,000 days to 78 days. Maybe I don't want pretzels, but I feel more like beverages, so we should change pretzels to Coke, which, by the way, will also fit the logo that I have right here, which is also another thing that I can easily change right there. So point is, I'm not technical. I can quickly point and click in certain elements and edit them very quickly. So let's actually ditch those changes real quick right now. Let's go back to presenting live. I'm going to click to present live, and I know I'm going to be meeting with Dave at Coke.com. All this that I'm typing in here is very relevant because this addresses also the analytics and the tracking part. Like, most of the organizations actually don't know how many demos their organization runs, who is presenting what to whom. All of this is very relevant because this also gets tracked and sent into your CRM, where you can use it for lead scoring, opportunity scoring, etc. But for now, let me just start the demo. I'm sharing a full screen, by the way, so you're going to see what the seller sees. So a little bit more than just a customer. With a customer, I would just share a tab. But as a seller, I can actually click on this little booklet right here. And you can see the speaker notes pop up right here. And it is exactly what it says it is. It's pretty much a script for your demo. A script that I can now move to the side of my screen, close that. And now I'm getting on a call, or I'm starting to run my demo and I'm sharing just a tab. The customer does not see this, but yet it tells me exactly what to say, tells me what kind of questions to ask. And oh, by the way, I'm also starting with a slide because it's not just interactive parts of my product that I can use here, but following best practices of the demo, maybe I want to start off with a challenge statement or a conversation starter like this, maybe a persona, maybe a testimonial video to have at the end of the demo or beginning. I can mix and match all these things into a demo. So I can now continue. Then it's going to tell me dynamically what to say on this particular screen, how to continue. So throughout all of this, pretty much it guides me how to run the demo, what kind of things to say. I can have my discovery questions and notes right here. So it takes away, pretty much the stress that I have from, having to remember the script. At the same time, it ensures consistency of messaging across all these demos. It also makes sure that the demo is engaging, right? A lot of times the people really focus on the script. They go through the features of the demo, but in this case, it really the script can include things to engage the customer. So that's why it can be helpful whether I'm an intern or I'm the CEO of the company and I need to know how to present a new release. I can literally just get a link and run it perfectly. Now that's not all. Let's say I just ran this demo and it's really nice. The customer loved it. And now, there's a typical scenario which we've all been in where I say, hey, I love it. But now, I'm going to get back to you in a couple of weeks after I meet with the internal stakeholders. I need to show it to them. I need to get their buy-in. I'll get back to you. Of course, I'm not going to be invited to those meetings, but now I have a chance to equip the champion, the person I'm talking to, with something very powerful for them and for the other people involved in the process. Now, what I can do is I can literally take the same demo or another demo that was, even more relevant after this call. Let's pick something like this. And I can share it with them as a link, send it in an email, Slack message, whatever works. I can also embed it on the website. I can show you some examples in a second. And then they're going to see the same demo, the same flow. It can be also personalized for them. But on top of this, they're also going to get a narrative that can guide them through the story and the flow of the demo. So it's not like a trial where they can get in, and I'm sure we've all had these experiences. We certainly did when we were at Salesforce, that, people would get into a trial. It's a lot of buttons. Yeah, it might have some sort of a guidance, but, ultimately people kind of get lost in it. They go off track. Here, it really takes them through a story, right? So it says, hello. On top of this, you have a video built in as well. Faces sell. It really helps for you to personalize this. Hey, Mr. Customer, Mrs. Customer, appreciate your business in our meetings today. This is what I prepared for you as a personalized sandbox. And hope you enjoy. I'm here if you have any questions. And then I can continue with the flow as it's going to guide me through everything that I should do in that demo. So there's no way for me to get lost. I can design this sandbox to be as interactive as I want to. We always, or typically recommend to customers to actually limit it to some most important functionalities on the path so that people, again, don't get lost, but really understand the value, right? So I can now click through it myself as a champion, but I can also take that and show this, to my team, my colleagues, and really explain them this value in a situation where a salesperson's not there to show it, right? So that's something that, I can share with them. And ultimately, both of these things that I just did, a live demo presentation, as well as this kind of follow-up on-demand demo, both of those things are tracked, right? And we track it, following, again, practices that we learned, from HubSpot or from selling Pardot, the marketing automation, marketing cloud at Salesforce. We divide those interactions into sessions. You can see there's live demo being ran by this gentleman right here. And I can then double click and see, hey, this person ran a demo to this person. Didn't go through a whole flow, so that's not great. Didn't spend a lot of time, but I know exactly what they were clicking on, what they spent time on from this short demo. Very similarly, I can go into my on-demand sessions. Let's pick something that is more robust. John Hershey, everybody loves chocolate. It's an on-demand session. So John was somebody who got a link shared with them, potential prospect. I can see, again, how much time they spent, how much of the demo they saw, what did they see exactly step by step. Maybe they had some questions they could have asked them, as well as all of that being brought into a score that, later you can use, again, for your lead scoring or opportunity scoring, right? So that's the gist of it. There's more bells and whistles, naturally. But as a salesperson and working with organizations, with go-to-market, typically you see that's how teams use that on a day-to-day basis.
And that's really cool. It's kind of like a combination of a lot of tools. Like it's a demo, it's a PowerPoint, it's Loom, it's got everything that you need in one place, which is awesome. You mentioned that you can embed it in a website too. I'm assuming like if you wanted to put on your .com website so that people can view a high-level demo, that's an option as well.
Absolutely. I think you're peeking at my tabs right here. So exactly, I actually really like this example. Working with Celonis, really great team overall around demos. A great product, bit of a backstory, great product, also pretty complicated product that really shines when you show it. It's a beautiful way how it works, but you really have to kind of show it. And they have built this amazing thing, this demo gallery on their website. And, actually, regardless of technology you'll be using, I think it's really well structured. And, if you're looking into process mining, again, go on such a website on this page, find yourself into one of those personas, let's say procurement, and jump into a specific use case. Maybe you want to check out productivity or revenue if you're in order management, and then you can go into one of those. And as part of their website, which is right here, you can see an embedded tour, a demo of productivity and procurement in this case. But it looks and feels like the real product, right? It kind of reacts to myself, whatever I do, but it also guides me. What should I see? And because it's a pretty complex product, right? I mean, I have a lot of buttons and things I can click on. I actually can't get lost because it tells me exactly what should I see, what should I focus on. And yeah, things like this, can generate thousands of sessions, leads, because, it's it's something more than just a screenshot or a video. It really engages people into it, and we see buyers are really appreciating this. Especially, I think this example is also great because it's ungated. You really want to shift away from forms, blocking things, rather to provide value easily and quickly like this, and then drive them to some CTAs.
I think it's just such a good insight on how sales ready a lead potentially is, right? I mean, it's one thing if they come to your website, it's another thing if they engage with a demo for 15 minutes and really dig into it. It sounds like it's really easy to get set up, although I'm guessing there's some work required to add like all of these buttons and everything. And I'm also curious how hard the Salesforce or HubSpot or any CRM integration is, or if it's just a widget that sits inside there. So what are the complex parts, if any, to actually getting Demoboost set up?
So good question. So the first part, and how do you actually get set up? You really need two things. Well, let's say maybe three. You need your own product, which you have. You need a Demoboost product, which acts as an extension in your browser. And when you will go to your product and click through your flow and activate Demoboost extension, it's going to capture that flow in your product into this sandbox kind of automatically. So it's very quick and easy. From the perspective of really the third thing I need is included in the meantime there. So you just have to know your flow, your click path, your demo. So you need somebody who actually understands your product from that perspective. But we see people getting done, getting their demos done in literally minutes. Of course, depending on complexity, but it's very straightforward. And we typically, say it's very easy to create a demo in Demoboost. Like technically, it's very easy. Or actually maybe it can be very quick, but it doesn't mean it's easy, right? It's like with anything, like with Figma or PowerPoint or a pen and a piece of paper. If you give me a pen and a piece of paper and ask me to draw a drawing, I'm going to do a terrible job. Like you need skill and expertise and think about what's going to be a good flow, what's going to make a good painting. Same way we have to think about your demo, right? You really have to spend time up front. Say, what is the story I want to tell? What is the flow I want to go through? And that's really the heavy lifting. And a lot of organizations don't have that, or maybe they want to improve on this. Later, the building of the demo is very easy. But we spend a lot of time also with our customers thinking about and working together with them to just really figure out the story. And the second part with the integration, we're a Salesforce partner, an ISV partner, and so it's a widget that you just integrate into Salesforce, adds a couple of fields into your objects, like opportunity, lead, all that good stuff. So it's nothing too complex.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, it sounds like you really need product or product marketing support on that initial flow setup. So you need some buy-in there.
Yeah, I think
absolutely. Or again, sorry, Dimitris, but I am a fanboy of pre-sales from this perspective. So it's either going to be product or pre-sales. A lot of times we see pre-sales really have that great understanding of what the buyer wants to see, what kind of flows work in demos, what kind of stories sell, because they are really on the front line. Like they are the people. Like if product marketing comes up with a great flow for their new product release, pre-sales teams are the ones who are taking this and showing it live to people and clicking through that. So they're getting the roughest, the most direct
real-time feedback. Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yep. So they are really, really experts in the product and how to show it from that perspective. So product marketing for sure, but I would say I need it together with pre-sales to get it to work.
Yeah, I think your product is having a lot of benefits, but many benefits. But I think what I see here is that there may be three areas that I see that are absolutely unique. Right. Number one is you have, like Lizzie said, you have a combination of multiple different other tools, right? Like you have a Gong, you have a Loom, you have a Keter, like multiple other things that you've seen or we've seen before. But I don't think they're giving you, one ability to have an interactive testing, a little bit testing with the tool itself. And all of these things, just all these features exist, but they never exist in one place or partially. But none of them is giving you the ability to just play with that. And it gets me to the second point, which I think is very often forgotten when we are in these conversations, and especially in the demo. I know that someone who's coming to me is trying to sell me something, won't tell me things that they don't work, right? Or they simply maybe they're not as good as they say they are. But if I have ability to play with these tools, even with a very simple parts or a very simple element of that application, it's giving me ability to ask questions whether I can do this and that, right? It's almost like education for myself, and I can do this on my own pace. Whereas when I'm in the demo, we just run through, right? I don't have 2 hours to spend with you on the call, right? It's somewhere squeezed somewhere between the other meetings. But now I have ability to do this on my time when I want, and I can educate myself and maybe take notes and go back to you and your team and ask additional questions, right? So that's another one. And I think the third one is a little bit more strategic and maybe market problem. I know that a couple of years ago, probably more than a couple, but I think Facebook was facing a problem. They didn't know how to monetize videos. And I know Google was struggling for a long time as well with the YouTube, because it was just not. It was something that was picking up, but it was not giving money. I think now we are in a completely different place. The adoption of video is huge, and I think it becomes like a regular go-to place for a lot of things. So let's say if I don't know the tool, I'm gonna go either to G2 or I'm gonna go to YouTube, and I'm gonna try to Google it and try to figure out what it is, what it does. Now I'm getting to my point. I think with your solution, that video is living almost forever, and you can put it almost like a sub page, like you did with Salonis, and you can see how people are reacting, how they consume that video. Right, your analytical part in your tool is giving you that ability, gathering data over time, and you can start improving that with probably minimal cost. So instead of testing another 10, 15 ideas, shooting from the hip very often, as in the marketing department, you have ability to gather the information and be a little bit more prescriptive at minimal cost. So your CAC is improving. I think your LTV to CAC ratio as a result of that will improve, and I think your tool is somewhat contributing in that process. So which is awesome. So that's kind of my logic, and that's what I see here. From a very operations finance hot point of view.
Awesome. These are really good points that I can add to the last two ones. So fully agreed with the last one, and then you're doing it at a very low overhead or no overhead, really. You're just investing in a piece of software, but it's not a huge implementation. You need additional headcount to it, etc. Because one could also argue, you could get a huge ERP implementation and get LTV to CAC improvements as well, because you're going to get all the single digits, from all the positions in your process, right? But this is kind of again a quick win. And the second point, which you said also, that it enables you to ask more questions, be more educated as a buyer, which I think is really smart. And sometimes, by the way, that we typically forget as a seller, that we run a sales process. And I remember we talked about it, some time ago, and we look at it as a sales process from a sales standpoint, but really it should be looked at from a buyer standpoint, right? But just really some practical things that we see people do with our software, which I think are really cool. We had no idea that you can do that. So first, you're running disco demos. You, with something like Demoboost, you're not afraid that it's going to crash. it's going to not work or anything like this, which demos tend to do. So you can be more, again, relaxed and like, hey, let me show you something actually quickly. And let's get your reaction to it. Let's have a conversation. And the second thing is to even take it to the next level. We see some organizations go into a Discord demo situation on the call, and they actually ask the buyer to demo the product. Now they don't really like demo it, but they touch it, and they say, okay, Mr. Customer, Mrs. Customer. So I'm going to send you this link right here, or maybe even better, I sent you this before so you can kind of familiarize yourself. On that call, can you just share your screen? You can walk through this beginning part. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about it, and then we can have a conversation about this dashboard and like what it means to you, what kind of data you would like to see there, how do you parse it, yada, 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 right? But if anything, it's a complete pattern interrupt for people. Like, 0.001% of organizations will do that right now. And I think there's a really big friction overall in the sales versus buyer process. People are really tired of all the qualification and discovery meetings. Mm-hmm. So if you also can stand out like this, and also it actually brings really good results because the customers are not like just, oh, wow, that's cool. But they're like telling you more, they're educated more. Educated might also mean that they're going to disqualify faster, which is also good for you. If it's not a yes, a quick no is better, right? So this gives you some, I would say, unexpected ideas really that come from our customers, how they use these things. So, but all that tying to what you were saying, like the buyer is more engaged, educated, can ask further questions.
Yeah, that's a big thing. What you just mentioned about how tools are helping to bring together other functions, right? And the friction is always there. I don't think we can live in frictionless, companies, right? I don't think this is a real expectation, but I think we can alleviate a lot of these pains and misconceptions. And I think if there is a good understanding what we're sharing and how we're approaching the customers, and this is a more consistent approach, and that information is passed on, without any, I would say, ambiguity or limited ambiguity, I think it's helping everybody. It's helping marketing, and then when the marketing is passing them, the upper funnel to the sellers through the SDRs, that process, to your point in your example, is accelerating. So there's one thing to be consistent and talking the same stuff, but there's another one to be faster and helping the company to scale. And then finally, once something lands on the post sale side and is an onboarding, I think there's a very, very often a misunderstanding what we sold, what we can do, and as a aha moment, and then from the get go, your customer is unhappy. That's a bad experience. You don't want to be in that process, right? Especially at the end of the food chain, because that is already putting you in a bad light and a lower probability to renew. Overall bad for the company. So I think having these, I would say, product demos done in a consistent way across the board, where I'm calling everybody demo, is absolutely critical, because it impacts your selling cycle and everything else. So I see this as like almost like an overarching value from tools like Demoboost.
Yeah, and I mean, it's gonna help in the upsell process too, of like you have a new product at launch and the customer success team wants to upsell it. There is nothing I dislike more than getting on a call to be pitched and not understanding what the product does by the time I get off the call. And I wish that never happened. Like I instantly want to jump into a demo, especially when you work for a SaaS product. You're like, I get it. I don't need the song and dance. Let's just see what it does and move on from there. I think one thing that Demetrius kind of started to hint at was, you want to understand what the product does well and doesn't do well, or what it can and can't do. And I think I'd love to learn a little bit about what you are hoping Demoboost can do in the future, maybe something it doesn't do now, and what is on your product roadmap for the next few months.
No, absolutely. So I think it's grouping it a little bit. We're focusing on two main areas. One is to really be a best possible solution for pre-sales teams, which includes making them productive and making them even more productive, and therefore making demo creation easy, demo personalization easier, faster, well, while maintaining quality, which is a really key thing in that particular function, because they are the face of the product on a call, right? So they really care about the quality, but also they have to be efficient in the sales process. So that's something we're working on. There's continuous improvements on the way we capture applications, the way you can personalize them at scale with the least amount of clicks and the least amount of time spent, from features to performance improvements. So that's one big focus of ours. And then the second thing is, assuming the demo is built, right? It's again, using an example or a comparison to a PowerPoint, you can have the most beautiful PowerPoint out there, right? But this doesn't mean that people are going to present it well for a number of different reasons, right? They might not have a script, they might not know where to pause. It doesn't matter, right? They might not even know where to find it potentially in your huge company repository.
Yeah.
So this also leads a second bucket of our initiatives, which is, let's make this beautiful demo that was built the best delivered demo. So things like improving on the scripting feature that we just showed you, right? That connects the demo to the script, that prompts them to say the right things, to ask the right question, and then with the discoverability of the content is also the importance of integrations and making sure that these demos are they already are, but just to make it even easier to integrate and embed into your existing systems, because nobody needs an additional login. We fully recognize this, and we're just trying to make it easier for everybody. So these would be like the two directions that we're focusing on. And of course, like we can't forget about all the analytics and all that good stuff, but this is an ongoing effort that we always, get feedback on and improve on.
Yeah. On the topic of analytics, what's the maybe one or two, I'll give you two, things that you tell people who adopt the product to focus on? I feel like there's always, like for us in the ad world, it's conversion based and it's your return on ad spend, right? That's the thing at the end of the day, we want people to focus on. What's the thing within Demoboost in terms of analytics that you really want customers focusing on?
So it would depend on the use case, but to generalize, it would be demo views, aka demos ran. Ultimately, if you build something and you want to show it to people, it's not useful if it's just sitting in your cupboard, right? So we say, hey, get it in front of as many people as possible and iterate, right? So this means also this is very closely aligned to getting things done quickly. Let's not think about a demo script for 2 months and then ship it. Let's get something quickly and let's get those demo views quickly there, right? So it can be slightly different for different organizations where we have use cases where people use for like heavy personalization of select products that don't get a huge amount of volume, but are very cumbersome to personalize, but or might not even be possible. Cybersecurity is a great space of that. Like, how do you demo a mass attack on your systems or servers, right? It's a very difficult thing to do. So yeah, it depends a little bit, but then 80-20 approach would say, hey, let's get your demo views up, demo sessions up.
Yeah, that makes sense. We've talked quite a bit about like the different product offerings in the market and where you fit in. And demos are certainly not new. Everyone's been doing demos for quite some time, but where do you see the overall market going when it comes to demos? What do you see the trends there, and who do you think, or what do you think is going to impact what Demoboost does and where the market goes?
So yeah, I mean, tough to predict the future. So I tend to actually look to the past a little bit, and not too far back into the past, but I would look into like 2 to 3 years back. So 2 to 3 years back, I always like this example, and you can have a look. There's this organization, a community called Pre-Sales Collective, right? They're doing a really good job. They literally started 2 to 3 years ago, the first community for pre-sales people. Okay. And right now it's 30,000 people globally signed up, going to events on Slack channels, doing all sorts of other things, right? And I'm bringing it up because I think it shows how quickly a certain this industry or function inside of the organizations that start owning these demos, pre-sales, how quickly it gathered traction, and it's not slowing down. So this lends us to believe, in working with the customers, we see how more important that gets more and more important, that hey, the pre-sales function is going to grow into more importance continuously. Whether it's going to be exponentially, I don't know, but it's going to grow. Why, the thesis is that the products are getting more complex, the buyers are getting more demanding. Therefore, you need to be more educated on a call. Listen to your point. You want to get on a call and do a demo and be really educated about the product. Don't just talk about fluff, right? So that really drives that, that function from the perspective. Because of that, we already start again from a couple of years back. We started seeing dedicated pre-sales budgets. We started seeing first RFPs for pre-sales specific solutions, which are all indicators that this kind of category, again, probably is not going to be reinventing the wheel. It's going to follow into sales tech, all these other things, and it's going to, following maybe the sales tech example, similarly trends, automate the mundane, right? Make sure that you're focusing on high value activities where really the person can add value. In pre-sales, this might be custom POCs, POVs, and all of that, boost that with new visibility, new importance, budget, and all that jazz, right? And so that's kind of at a high level. And then, on the solution level, again, then it has to start with the problems then, same thing. The middle funnel of the sales process is super messy. There's least visibility there. There's a ton of analytics, and people have really, got it nailed down or have tools to nail down the top of the funnel. How do we attract leads, prioritize them, funnel them, so et cetera, et cetera. Then we know, how to send people to DocuSign, get them, signed up, process their payments and all that good stuff. But how do we get the, this middle funnel saying like discovery, demo, POC? This is art, this is art. And, with that art, there's a lot of different challenges that can be uncovered and helped with. And I think we're only just scratching the surface. I mean, I know we do, because we just get so many requests for features and, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? And it's going to be pretty exciting time for the pre-sales community and overall, just, I think, go-to-market and sales.
Yeah, that's really interesting about the middle funnel. It's a mess. And I feel like it's a mess in most industries, right? Like, same in ads. It's really easy to say what converted the ad and how to get them to your website, but all the different touch points in between are really hard to track, and what moves that needle is really hard to track. And I think what Demoboost and the analytics provide is just another tool and tracking that you can utilize in that process. So it's very exciting. I want to get Demoboost. I've been sold.
Easy. That's easy. I have a question on this. Actually, this is my follow-up question. I couldn't solve this dilemma. Maybe you have an answer. I don't know how much of that what you just said is driven by a lack of our understanding how the pre-sales works, and what is the art, and what it really means to be good at it, versus desire for productivity. And I think, productivity should be driven off that first one, right? Of the former. Once you have an understanding, you know where you're going, that should be at least easier. I'm not saying easy, but easier. But I don't know if we actually passed that stage that we can say, this whole sales process, especially, POCs, demos, right? The disco, all of that is at the place where we can just start squeezing the productivity and say, you know what, we can automate all of this. So what's your take on this, Pawel?
I don't think it's my single answer, because I don't think it's ever going to be the case when we can automate all of that, right? And we're going to be able to automate some of these parts, and I totally agree that it's like with anything else. Like you have to first kind of master a skill and learn how to walk before you run. And by mastering the skill, how to work smarter, versus just work harder. So it's definitely true from the perspective. That's what I think mentioned earlier, right? We talked to different organizations, and a lot of times it's still going to come down to like, hey, like, do we have a common demo script? Do you know how to show your product? Typically the answer is, if you had 5, 10, 20 demos with 20 different people, you would see 20 different products. Still, because it's difficult from that perspective. So I don't think I have a perfect answer for this, but it requires this. I think I'll go back to this, micro or macro, whatever you want to call this perspective. I put a lot of hope, and we see this with the best organizations that do this. Put emphasis on the pre-sales teams. That they own the demo, like somebody owns the demo really, and they work together. They pull in product marketing and they pull in, enablement, all these people. But there's clear ownership of this, and then from that they plan, the demos, the scripts. They standardize. They start tracking, because now there's technology that enables them to track. They couldn't do this 2 or 3 years ago, so they can start kind of using all of this. To know what's working first manually, and then start automating certain aspects. But by no means is it going to be automated, never ever, because I think it's very similar to like development. But I'm not a developer, I'm not an expert, but it's the same thing. Like, yeah, you're probably your mundane code and writing prompts for putting the right CSS class in a particular button is going to be automated, but not thinking about a more complex algorithm. So an analogy here, your repetitive demo can be automated or shown by somebody else with less experience. But when a customer comes in and they're an enterprise customer and they're like, hey, I have really detailed questions that need to be tailored to my experience right here, right now, and my experience could be any number of different things, result of my existing systems, history, yada yada yada, whatever I want to know. I need an expert. And then this expert should have enough time, not being flooded with mundane tasks, and enough free mind space to do the best job possible. Close their deal.
I completely agree with you, Paulo. I think I don't need a salesperson to sell me Calendly or, or your SMS text message product. I can set that up and I don't want to have to go through a salesperson. But on anything that starts to get a little more complex that you're investing money in, I want an expert, and the salesperson impacts the sale or not. Like if I like the salesperson, I am more likely to buy that product. And that is something that AI could never impact. And that comes to like, I know I'm going to get the support I need when I ask questions. I know I'm going to get quick responses to things. There's a factor there that I just don't think could ever be completely automated.
Yeah, I would agree with that. This is spot on. But I think we can improve our time spent and time allocation. Like Pavel said, there's some
1,000%.
tasks that can be just removed completely from the process, and I think we're going to spend, our time where actually the highest ROI is. So that's the future, and I don't think this is indifferent to any other segment of go-to-market tools, or even any other industry for that matter. So it's just the same repeating theme. But it's definitely good to get your perspective on that, and how you think on this. So I want to move to the last part of our podcast, which is kudos to the industry. If you have anyone you want to call out and you want to give a shout out.
No, there's plenty of people, and I already mentioned Pre-Sales Collective. A great job, just building the community there. And definitely, when we have to, I'm really grateful for the work that a company called Consensus is doing, and it's a really great team there, and they are kind of that OG pre-sales solution in the space. And OG in a good way. It doesn't mean that they're obsolete or anything from that matter, but they really were, I think, one of the first ones to kind of get that going, and they built an amazing foundation, and they just keep growing from there with their events, with their knowledge sharing, and just continuously innovating. So I think they're doing an amazing job. So kudos to them. And then maybe the last thing I would also say, it's kudos to, I would say, the open source community on the pre-sales side. Whenever we talk to pre-sales teams, they use they find their way to different solutions, right? And they were taught because of the lack of budgets and different things. They have to just find a way to do certain things, from which grew a number of great open source solutions for automations, personalization, all that good stuff. So, I mean, some people who are in the space might recognize demo monkeys, tamper monkeys. For some reason, the monkey seems to be a keyword there. But it's an open source. These are open source projects maintained by the community, and I think they are really helpful because whether somebody can wants to invest in a solution like ours, maybe they're gonna get blocked by the CFO, but still they might have some open source solution. They can not maybe do the same thing, but something else. So always great to see that. I think, and also always a great thing for the industry. Pre-sales Collective consensus and open source friends at all these products. Hats off to you, and we're just trying to humbly follow.
Yeah, the pre-sales collective looks cool, and I'm part of a partnerships leaders community. I think what I've learned in anything like that is you get a lot of good ideas of how to bring things back to your organization and sell them through or implement new ideas. So for anyone out there on a pre-sales team struggling, I highly recommend getting involved in a community that you can chat through problems with and figure out solutions to. I didn't know that existed, so that was cool to learn about. I learned a lot about pre-sales today, so thank you.
Yeah, that was your session, Lizzie. All right, I think it's a good place to stop. That's it for the episode. Thank you for joining and sharing your thoughts, Pawel. It was a pleasure to hear you and your opinions. And thanks for listening. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to this episode of the RepTech Podcast. Please subscribe on the listening platform of your choice and leave us a review to let us know how we're doing.